It should have been a referendum. Everybody should have their say. I'm guessing, Claude, that's something you agree with.
Yeah, I do. And hi, Eddie. Good morning.
Morning to you.
I'm very concerned. I had to do a post on Twitter to say that I urge my MP to take action in voting against this bill. Reason why is I'm really concerned on the elements of disability rights and also where the safeguards are within the elements of this bill. It's not really clear within my satisfactory for it to be considered, and I still think we have a NHS which is still trying to find itself within a lost situation.
So what makes you feel so strongly one way or another? Adam Gabsy is a close friend of the show, Disability Rights Campaigner, was on yesterday and was saying that his worry was that it would be the kind of gateway towards people who were, disabled like him, perhaps not getting treatment and being thought of as not worthy. Why are you so passionate about it, one way or another?
Well, I think we do have a element where it will become, as what the Justice Secretary has said, a situation of on-demand kind of pattern of behaviour when it comes to misusing policy. I also concerned on a religious point of view as well, and we know that we've had this kind of, other people having an argument against religious point of views. However, it's not also just religious point of views, it's also the element of where the NHS needs to be, I think, built within more of a kind of better structure and more of a better kind of functioning.
Right. So hold on. You know where this comes from. This comes predominantly from people who have no quality of life, who know that they're going to die, and would like to keep their dignity and make the decision about how and when they die. Does the fact that they are in that moment and they will not live and they are worried about the pain and angst that it will entail to stay alive, do their views not matter then?
Their views does matter, and also I've heard many of these stories before on like LBC and throughout. It's been great to see the coverage that the media has done, and that's been very important and very poignant. However, the problem that we have is within that kind of sector of afterlife care, it's not functioning apparently, and also there are elements of concern, and there's even people in that area that do have concerns about how the government's going about with this policy and not focusing on other policies as well.
Well, I don't know about that. Dame Esther Ranson is dying, and she has asked for this to be something that is considered and talked about. And while I accept, I have to, your strong view on it, I like talking. It's what I do for a living. Everything needs to be discussed, in my words. So the discussion of it is not something that I would stop, and let's see where it comes. Claude, when we get the result, maybe we'll have another conversation. Bossy!
Yes? Don't let me down, because I want to continue this tone. Let's go to another call. It's Claude in Richmond Park. Hello, Claude.
Hi, Ian.
Hi. What would you like to say?
So I'm massively concerned, especially as a country regional representative for persons with disabilities and our disability rights. The safeguarding issues I have is that we're not like Australia in regards to investment into our home affairs and ensuring that we have a health system that is able to deliver this bill and the measures that this bill will open up to.
Well, just explain that. What have Australia got that we haven't?
So in regards to the fact of investment and in fact that we've got doctors that are migrating from the UK to Australia because of the quality of life. And you just kind of have to think about these important safeguards and of how the bill can open up to extreme risk for people with disabilities.
Like what?
Well, like when basically we're talking about inheritance and the element of people ensuring that people are going to be taking their life much more sooner without questions being answered, or that element of basically, the safeguard elements of really, there's not enough clarity for me as a person who believes that there needs to be much more protections in place. There needs to be also much more responsibility if we're going to consider this bill. And also the element that everyone is dying, meaning in like the global south because of the climate emergency, and why we haven't got investment in general in other important elements before considering this policy, which is very questionable to me.
Let's put your points to Paul Blomfield. Paul, how can you reassure Claude that disabled people aren't going to find themselves, I don't know what the expression is, but sort of not under attack, but are they vulnerable to this sort of legislation?
Well, I'm really glad that Claude's raised this because it is a concern that people have, and it was one of the concerns that I know Kim Leadbeater heard when she was consulting widely in preparing the bill. And it's why there are two safeguards here. One is to say that the bill is strictly limited to those with terminal illness and a prognosis of 6 months. And to make that absolutely crystal clear and to underline that point, it specifically precludes disability. And I know Kim has said in Parliament that she's as strong a supporter of rights for the disabled community as anybody, and it's why Tom Shakespeare, who you'll know was knighted for being probably the most renowned voice from the disabled community, has backed this bill and said that if it's limited to terminal illness, why shouldn't disabled people have the same rights as anybody else if they're terminally ill? If they're not, it doesn't apply.
Gordon, are you reassured by that?
No, not at all, because many of us end up disabled as we get older. Being disabled is not a separate category for many people who are terminally ill. And so the question then becomes is what sort of attitudes permeate through the healthcare system, which are already there in relation to disabled people. So people like Baroness Jane Campbell, for example, or Tanya Gray Thompson will tell you that when they go into hospital, their relatives have to fight to stop doctors putting do not attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation orders on them and things like that. There is already an attitude within society which sees disabled people's lives as being of less worth than other people's lives. And sadly, that does permeate through the healthcare system. So when you bring this in as well, then that will compound that problem. And that's why they are concerned, and that's why they will be outside Parliament tomorrow expressing their views, and why Liz Carr, is very articulate on this too. So although Tom Shakespeare, who has been for a long time supportive of a change in the law, most advocates for disabled people are opposed.
But what about the argument that Paul just put, that disabled people should have the right to take advantage of this just as any able-bodied person should?
Well, if the law changes, they will, of course, if they meet the legal criteria. But the issue then is, how do you say if somebody's got 6 months to live or not? I have a former colleague whose father was given 6 months to live. He lived for 11 years. Doctors are not necessarily good at accurately predicting how long people have to live.
That is quite a telling argument, isn't it, Paul?
It's an argument that's come up, and I think that what doctors will say, and what they have said, is that the closer you are to the end of your life, the easier it is to make a firm prognosis, and 6 months is fairly close. Now, I've also had friends who've had prognosis that have thankfully been proved to be spectacularly wrong. But that's something to celebrate. I think that we need to understand that in this situation...
But if they're already dead, you can't celebrate it, can you?
But that's the point I was going to make, Ian. But I think sometimes people have a misconception that you get a prognosis of 6 months, you apply for an assisted death, you're signed off by 2 doctors confirming that prognosis. So it's not just one opinion, it's 2 opinions. And then you pop the tablets. Not the case. What people are wanting, as I was saying earlier, the experience of Oregon proves, is the opportunity to have control if things get bad. If they don't get bad, people aren't going to die before their time. They will. All the campaigners that we've had who are involved in this, who are dying, are celebrating their lives while they can. They want the insurance of knowing that they're going to be able to take control when pain becomes too much, so that they can celebrate them as much of the life as they have left.
Well, you mentioned the phrase take control there. Obviously, that was a slogan, or take back control was a slogan in the Brexit referendum. Well, Nathan says something like this should go to a public